Thanks for tuning in to the Ourlads Football Network, Ourlads Football YouTube channel, as we get ready for Mock Draft 4.0. That's right, believe it or not, we are finally at 4.0, boys, and that means the draft is just days away, a little over a week away, so we're all excited about it. Dave Syvertson and John Cooper, of course, joining us here at Ourlads.com. How's it going, guys?
Great.
Good.
Tired.
Excited?
Tired and excited.
Yeah, weary. Yeah, that was good. Weary.
All right, so let's get right into it. We are going to go through each and every one of the picks in the first round. Again, don't forget you can find these picks over at ourlads.com. We'll have a link in the description. I'm also going to post them here in just a second so you can take a look at them. But look, everybody's, of course, talking about the first pick, as well they should, Dave. And it looks like Cam Ward is a lock at this point.
Yeah, mock draft 1.0 in January. The debate was Ward, Hunter, Carter, Sanders even at that point. But we gave Cam Ward to Tennessee in early January, and here we are the week of the draft. It seems like it's one of the two locks of the NFL draft. Cam Ward, this team has not had a consecutive 3,000-yard passer since Ryan Tannehill. That's also the last time they won more than 7 games back in 2021. So easy selection here.
Dave, meanwhile, you have Travis Hunter going to the Cleveland Browns. And this also seems like it's getting to be maybe not as solid a lock as Ward, but it's getting there.
Yeah, we kind of made that decision on mock drafts early in our conversations that Travis Hunter was the most logical player for Cleveland to take. They've got a ton of needs. The thing with Hunter is he's a two-way player. A unique two-way player. You don't find guys like this very, very often. And Hunter is a guy that is an elite defensive back, cornerback, great cover skills. He's also a terrific wide receiver. Where's he going to play? He said, I want to play two ways. That's his quote. And he wants to be significantly playing two ways, not just a backup at one position and a starter at the other. So how is a team like Cleveland going to handle that? I find it hard to believe he's going to play 100 snaps a game, but there's he could be used situationally or as a third defensive back, a nickel on defense, or he could be used as a third, fourth wide receiver, a dime receiver or a dime back, so to speak, depending upon which position he sees the most reps. So I think he can be a significant contributor on both sides of the ball. And I think Cleveland looks at their needs, and they have needs at both positions. I could see him being an impact player for the Cleveland Browns.
Dave, the New York Giants, this is when things might start to get a little bit interesting, but we talked about this even a few weeks ago. Matter of fact, I spoke with Ryan Dunleavy of the New York Post, obviously covers the New York Giants, that Abdul Carter does seem to be the guy that makes the most sense with the Giants.
Yeah, they want a quarterback, but I think even reaching for one of these quarterbacks at this point, it's just too big of a reach. And maybe they reevaluate a trade up into the back half of the first round. But at this point in the draft, you got to take a blue chip player. And to quote John Mara, at the end of the season, he is sick and tired of watching teams work up and down the field against that defense. The Giants defense has lost its way. When they win Super Bowls, they have an identity up front. And that's what Abdul Carter brings back to the table. So after all said and done, I actually think this is a pretty easy decision.
John, now we've got the interesting pick. It's already happened. It's pick 4. Things are going to get interesting. And I think things are going to get very interesting the entire draft, probably starting at about 3 or 4, John. And right here, we've got Ashton Jeanty going to the New England Patriots, even though most people believe Will Campbell is going to be the guy.
Dave and I debated this one when we were doing this mock draft, and we went back and forth to decide what we thought we should do. And Ashton Jeanty is a terrific football player. He's an impact player, and to quote Dave's report, he could be one of the best backs in the NFL day one when he walks into training camp. So this is a special player. He can break tackles. He's got a terrific yards after contact rate. He's got good breakaway speed. He can make people miss. He's got decent hands. He's a terrific running back. He's could be one of those difference maker backs. Tackle is a big need, and tackles are important, especially left tackle. But to get a difference maker like Ashton Jeanty, in the first round is, to me, is too good to pass up for a team like New England that has running backs, but they're okay. They're two serviceable backs, but Ashton Jeanty will elevate that room, elevate that team, and that's the pick that we would make if we were making that pick.
Yeah, I guess the argument, though, Dave, is that if you don't have a good offensive line to block, exactly where's the running back going?
Yeah, well, I don't know if you're going to find that guy at 4 overall either. I mean, this offensive line group is not what we saw last year. And I think it's just assumed that there's always going to be an elite offensive lineman in every draft. And to be blunt, there's good offensive linemen in this draft, but there's also a lot of question marks, even with the top guys. Should they be inside? Should they be the outside? I mean, Will Campbell, for example, his size metrics, when you're talking about wingspan and height and lack of length, it's off the charts low. And he can play. We know that. But you're not passing on Joe Alt here for Ashton Jeanty. You're passing on a much lesser prospect when you're looking at the grade. And I think that they attack offensive line day 2, and that's where you find a lot of starters in the NFL along the offensive line.
Okay.
Yeah, Jeanty's a super player. I mean, he's a guy that is a difference maker. I don't know that Will Campbell's a difference maker. He's a guy, a good guy, a good player. He'll help, but Ashton Jeanty's a difference maker.
Speaking of difference makers up the middle, Dave, next is Mason Graham. And unlike the controversial pick we just talked about, this one seems to be in line with what most people believe. It's nowhere near the lock of the top 4 as far as the odds go. But overall, a lot of people do believe that this makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, this is what we also thought on Mock Draft 1.0 in early January. And you could see Mason Graham because of the lack of traits dropping a little bit, but he's a real difference maker, run and pass. And James Gladstone, new general manager, comes from the Los Angeles Rams. He just watched what Kobe Turner and Braden Fisk and Jared Verse did to that defense as rookies. And I think Mason Graham brings a very similar level of immediate impact and the kind of guy that brings that defensive line to new heights. They have solid players inside, but they don't have any difference makers when you're talking about pressure and tackles for loss. Mason Graham becomes that weapon right away.
Next up, we're going to go and hit another skill position player, and this is going to be Tet McMillan, John. And that means a wide receiver goes 6. And anytime a wide receiver goes 6, he's a special player.
Yeah, he's got length. He's got good speed. Great route runner. Las Vegas needs a receiver. They need weapons. There's some thought they would love Ashton Jeanty, I'm sure, but right now he's not there. So impact player on offense is where they're going in our minds if this happens, and that would be McMillan would be the guy. So you believe if Jeanty were on the board, he doesn't get past the Raiders? That's our opinion. No, we in one of our mock drafts, he did get past the Raiders, but that was a while back. I don't think Jeanty's going to slip that far.
Okay, next up, the New York Jets. And this one seems to be a pretty, a question that we saw last year, Dave. Same question. Do the Jets go offensive line or tight end? The tight end they decided to pass on. He obviously had a tremendous rookie season. We don't know yet if the Jets are going to be happy with that pick because he didn't play a whole lot, but that's the nature of the NFL. What do you think the Jets do this time around? Or at least we already know. But at this point in time, you think they go the opposite direction and don't pass on the tight end this time?
Yeah. 1.0 in early January. Call me stubborn maybe, but Tyler Warren was the pick back then. He's the pick here in 4.0. I believe the game plan for this offense in signing Justin Fields to a 2-year contract, which is a little bit of a shot in the dark, but I think it's worth one taking, make this offense tough to plan for. And that's what Tyler Warren is one of the most versatile players you're ever going to see at tight end. Justin Fields is a dual threat. Whether you believe in his passing or not, you can go debate that, but he's still a dual threat. You have some outside threats, especially in Garrett Wilson. They've put resources into that offensive line, including last year's number 1 pick in Fashanu. This is another time to get a weapon that is hard to plan around. And I think Tyler Warren or Colston Loveland, if you want a more athletic pass catcher, is going to be the pick here at number 7.
Yeah, this is the issue right here that the Jets are going to be thinking about long and hard. Is we have no idea what they think about Carter Warren. We have no idea if they trust Okafor, who quit on the Patriots last year. Maybe they do. Maybe they trust Okafor. Maybe they trust Warren. These are things we do not know.
Yep.
But if they don't, it's going to be kind of hard to pass on a right tackle here. But then again, I mean, even Max Mitchell can come into play.
Yep.
This is the same situation the Patriots had, right? Where if they go ahead and opt for a skill position player now, they could take an offensive tackle possibly with their second pick.
Yep.
Okay, next up, Carolina. And John, this is where we go to an edge rusher. We get our second edge rusher off the board with Shemar Stewart.
Yeah, I think Carolina desperately needs help up front, and particularly in the area of the pass rush. They need to get a player on the edge that can help them. And, they are a 3-4 team. So there's a lot of different ways they could go with this. They can go defensive end. They can go somebody that can, come off the edge from a wide 9. Stewart is a little bit of a different player, and he's polarizing. Anybody they take here as far as an edge player could be polarizing. But the thing with Stewart is he doesn't have a lot of production as far as sacks are concerned. But if you talk to NFL people and metrics people, that's not the statistic that they look at when they look at a pass rusher, particularly coming out of college. They want sacks when they get into the NFL. But coming out of college, they look at the scheme that Texas A&M's playing. They look at what teams are doing against Texas A&M. And then the most important statistic becomes the pressure rate. And Shemar Stewart had one of the best pressure rates in college football. And so therefore, from that, he's quick off the ball. He's got good acceleration. He's got every technique situation that you want to look at. Stewart is good. He can kick down inside. He's versatile. Is an inside pass rusher. He pushes the pocket. He had 1.5 sacks, 4.5 in his career. But the Texas A&M defense, they move those guys, and they rotate those guys. They've had a lot of very good defensive linemen coming out of Texas A&M, and they're tough to plan for on offense. And so therefore, the ball's coming out of the quarterback's hands pretty quick when they play Texas A&M because they had 2 good edge pass rushers playing for him last year. And Stewart, when we look at it, my gosh, he's quick off the ball, his speeds, his acceleration, all these things look so good. How come no sacks? Well, there's reasons for that too. It's a relative statistic. So Shemar Stewart is a good pick. Somebody's going to take him, I think, in that top 15 if he slips past Carolina.
Dave, do you think that Nolan is the backup guy here?
Yeah, Nolan, they can go in a lot of different directions. I think what I'm very confident saying is they're going defense at that point, if they stay put. I mean, you could go down the defensive back list of Jahdae Barron, Will Johnson. Walter Nolan would be the backup option if they want to go defensive line. Jalen Walker would be the backup option if they want to go edge. But Shemar Stewart, they love Jadeveon Clowney down there. And if there's one pass rusher in this class that has that kind of skill set that you can try to develop under Clowney, who's still there, it's Shemar Stewart.
Okay. Next
I just want to say something about Nolan. Nolan's a versatile player too, even though he's considered an interior defender. But he would be more of a defensive end in their scheme who would kick around, that way. So there are some differences as to how those 2 guys could be used, but very similar.
By the way, Jalen Walker, speaking of polarizing players, is the odds-on favorite to go here. And I know we're not going to talk about him for quite a while. That doesn't mean that he can't go in the top 10. This is just a player that we have no idea where he's going to land.
His spectrum is really high. It's really
correct.
Okay. Saints are next. And with the New Orleans Saints here, by the way, just so everybody knows, Shedeur Sanders is the odds-on pick to go to the Saints. But you guys, Dave, starting with our pick here, obviously, is Will Johnson from Michigan.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a ton of urgency in that room to take a quarterback in year 1 of Kellen Moore's regime. That cornerback room might be the worst in football right now. And that needs to get solidified at some point. And I believe in Will Johnson, even though some have gone backwards on him. He played in 6 games. He nursed the hamstring injury. He chose not to run a 40 at his pro day. There are long speed question marks in his game, but he plays the game so fluid. He knows it inside and out. He's got tremendous ball skills that are on display on tape against the best receivers in the nation. He's played against a lot of NFL receivers in his 3-year career, and he's come out the winner more often than not. I trust his ability to be a cornerback number 1 at the next level, and I think this is good value. Shedeur Sanders was a thought, but I think the underlying theme on him is he's just not the kind of guy you want to pass on really good players for. And I believe in Will Johnson at number 9.
I'll just make one comment on Will Johnson. One of the things that he battled through injuries this season. So, yeah, his play did not reflect how he had played the year before and even early in the season. So there was an injury there that was a factor.
Bears are next, John. And speaking of the Wills, we go back-to-back Wills with Will Campbell. And I guess if Will Campbell doesn't go to the Patriots who knows? Again, the Jets are the possibility if he's available, but we have him going 10 to the Bears.
Yeah, if he was there, I think the Bears will jump. They're not 100% sure their left tackle is a guy. And if you look at what happened to them last year, they made, in our opinion, a couple of mistakes with Caleb Williams. Bringing him in without a quality offensive line to play with as a rookie, without a veteran backup, you saw the results. And so one of the things they have set out to do in this offseason is shore up that offensive line. That's been the number 1 priority. They picked up 3 new players on the interior. Joe Thuney is a terrific player, and he is going to solidify that guard position. But, he's a little bit up long in the tooth. So these guys, they need depth, and they need somebody that can play that left tackle position and can do it make sure we protect that left side for Caleb Williams. Make sure he's got a clean pocket. He needs to learn to play from a clean pocket, and Will Campbell can do that. He's got great athleticism. There's some questions about his length. Does he fit at tackle? And he certainly fits at tackle. The tail of the tape tells you that. Whether he's going to be able to handle the greatest edge rushers in the NFL or not, that's always a question mark with anybody that comes out of the draft. You don't know for sure what you're going to get until you get him in the room. But watching him on film, he's a great projection for left tackle. That said, he could slide inside the guard and be an absolutely phenomenal guard if that's the route the Bears decide to go eventually. But I could see him being drafted there and being the left tackle for the Bears. Now, they've also got some other guys they could look at too. There's Banks down the line. They could even look at Armin Membo. If Campbell's gone, Campbell being the odds-on favorite to go to New England, if that actually happens, then the Bears still have some other options. Plus, they could go, to an edge rusher. Because they could use somebody there as well.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised that out of all the players that are projected to go to the Bears, it's I think you have to go to like their 5th or 6th player projected is actually on the defensive side. I'm a little bit surprised by that because again, if it's not an offensive lineman, I think it has to be defense. It has to be edge rusher, you would think, right?
Yeah, the running back is a consideration. If Tyler Warren slips down there, he's too good of a player to pass up, in my opinion, too. I know that's some of the talk in Chicago is those things.
Yep.
So
okay. San Francisco, Dave, Walter Nolan.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna push this guy over to John because he studied him the most. But I do think San Francisco their roster has been ravaged as much as any in football this year, and they have to get that identity back. So that's kind of where this pick came from. But I think John's got some better input on him.
Yeah, one thing about San Francisco, they could go a lot of different directions here. They're going to take best player available because their roster, as Dave mentioned, is it's got problems. It's been hammered a little bit. And in talking with metrics people that we've dealt with, when we put up a team needs based on metrics back in February, they didn't list a lot of positions. They just said simply everybody. So there's a situation you've got. Walter Nolan would be a terrific pick for them. We think he's great value. There's some people that project him in the top 10 as possibly going to somewhere like Carolina, as mentioned. But he is a quick off the ball defensive tackle that can push the pocket He's got great lateral movement where he can make plays along the line. He could line up as a defensive end in a 3-4 and be very effective and slide down inside in the nickel package and your 4-down package. He is, we think right behind, Graham as a tackle. Athletically, he's better than Graham. But as far as overall play and motor and some of the things, he's not quite that guy. But those two guys are right next to each other as far as the type of player they are. And Walter Nolen will be a great player wherever he goes, we think. And San Francisco is a very logical place for him to be.
Aren't you now? Do you believe that the reason why most people aren't really targeting offensive line necessarily with San Francisco is because, as I see here, I mean, we always look at the general manager, and he's obviously Lynch has been there, and the trends of who he drafts and what position, and all I have to do is take a look at their offensive line, and I don't see any first-round guys here. So is this just one of the deals where John Lynch just doesn't really like picking offensive linemen in the first round because this team needs offensive linemen?
Well, I think his best player available. I mean, I think Walter Nolen is a better pick than Armin Membo or Banks. Either one of those guys are good football players, but Walter Nolen is a special player. So that's what you're going to take. I mean, general manager is not going to pass on a great defensive player like Walter Nolen, I think. I could be wrong. They may value one of those other guys more, and it just depends on how they value them, not how the pundits value them.
And look who's coaching that team too. That Shanahan system. I mean, his father was known for taking day 3 offensive linemen and turning them into Pro Bowl and All Pros because of the scheme. We even got a glimpse of that last year with Dominic Pooney. A 3rd-round guard, tackle convert from Kansas that some people had a day 3 grade on, and he comes out. He's one of the. I think he made the Our Lads All Rookie team at guard. I mean, he was a stud from day one, and part of that is scheme based. Yep. They go after a certain profile of offensive linemen that you usually can find outside of the first round.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to take the best. They need flat out the best player available, whether it's offense or defense. And Walter Nolen, in our mind, is the best player available.
Okay, Matthew Golden to Texas, John.
Yeah, he's a terrific wide receiver with speed. Not the biggest guy in the world, but he's got the speed people are looking for. Dallas is another team that needs a lot of help on defense. So I think that, excuse me, if a guy like Walter Nolen was there, he would be the pick, or very well could be the pick, I should say. But having there again, best player available, and as far as a position of need, I should qualify that, and. They need a receiver. They need help there. They need more weapons. They've got some great talent at that position. But Matthew Golden adds to that room, gives them a complete wide receiver room, and that's going to help a lot.
All right. Next up, Miami and Dave. We go cornerback once again with Barron from Texas.
Yeah, depending on who you talk to, some are going to have Jahdae Barron as their number 1 defensive back in this class because he's multiple. He can play the slot. He can play on the outside. He can even play some safety, which he did do at Texas. This is an offseason where the Dolphins, they're about to trade Jalen Ramsey. They lost Javon Holland. This is a really empty room, especially if and when they trade Ramsey. I know the temptation, and I talked to a few Dolphins guys that the offensive line and getting another receiver, believe it or not, is as at the forefront of their mind. And I know Membu's there. This is a hard call, but in terms of being the best football decision for this team long-term, it's Jahdae Barron. And it actually, to me, it's not that close. It's really between him and Membu. And to me, I'm not sure what you're doing with Membu in year 1. And do you want to draft a guard at this point? You could, but you're going to have gaping holes at multiple spots in the secondary. And I like Barron because he gives you a few options.
Well, speaking of that safety position that's open up, I believe on our previous draft, I know that you and I did, Starks was someone that we considered here as well because of the obvious need at safety.
Yeah. Yeah. I love Starks.
Is that a reach?
For Starks?
Correct.
Not on ours. I mean, we think Starks is one of the best players in the draft. It's just the position he plays is not seen as that valuable, which I understand. Starks was in the discussion a lot. I mean, he ended up falling a little bit in this draft, but you could see him go in this area.
Yeah. Barron, he was the quarterback of the year or say a defensive back of the year. How much that means, I'm not sure, but it means some people were paying attention and saw what he could do. He's got some holes, but as they all do. But he's a solid pick for Miami. They need help, and getting an outside corner, a guy that can play outside corner. They could slide him inside if they've got an outside corner that is not necessarily suited for every down. A lot of teams do that in the nickel, and he's an ideal player for that.
The Colts are next, and John, of course, the Colts are definitely considering a tight end, and we have no idea if Warren will still be here. It's doubtful, but obviously he's off the board here, and you believe they go with another offensive lineman.
Yeah, it's a tough call. Loveland, I think they would love to have Tyler Warren. Colston Loveland's a consideration here, but I think you're looking at they need help on the offensive line. Armin Membo is a solid pick. He can play guard. He can play tackle. He's a right tackle primarily, but we could see him sliding inside and being an effective guard. And we're not so sure he couldn't play left tackle. He's athletic enough to do that.
Atlanta, Dave, and everybody knows this is no secret that the Falcons need an edge rusher. So that is why Mykel Williams is the pick here.
Yep. This was another Mykel Williams or Jalen Walker. I mean, Jalen Walker's name keeps popping up in discussions. And again, every draft, someone falls, at least one. In this draft, I think you're going to see a few guys fall based on consensus. But because there's just so many grades that are just so near each other, that I went for the bigger, more physical guy because of what I think they need up front in relation to what they have. Leonard Floyd, we know he's not a long-term answer on the edge, but I believe that Mykel Williams brings an immediate difference to what they currently have, and I think he's someone that can develop into an elite edge talent if he realizes those tools. He's still a little raw. That injury that he sustained week 1 really did make his evaluation process really cloudy. According to him, he was only 60% all year. I don't know about that, but he definitely has an upside that very few guys will reach, and he's one of the youngest players in the draft. So to me, the Falcons, they just need talent up front. And what I like about Williams, in contrast to Walker, is he can be multiple. You can shift him inside and out. And he's probably the best pure edge-setting run defender of all the edge players in this class, and that matters to a coach like Raheem Morris.
Luther Burden is our next pick, John, to Arizona. One thing about that, it's always a slippery slope to say best, because there's a lot of factors there. In terms of who's the best run edge rusher or edge setter as far as the run is concerned. A lot of factors go into that. But anyway, looking at Luther Burden as a pick to the Cardinals. And looking at their roster, they have obviously one of the best receivers in the NFL potentially, in Marvin Harrison Jr. Before it's over, this kid is going to be super. And getting somebody that can play in that slot that has speed is something that they need very badly. Luther Burden is going to be a polarizing player no matter who drafts him. I mean, there's some talk about some things that happened at the end of last season in terms of effort, coachability, things of that nature. Questions have come up. But if you just take a look at this player, and I think the Cardinals would love to have a guy that has downfield speed along with route running ability, and Luther Burden is that guy. He will make them better, putting him as primarily a slot receiver to go along with Harrison. You're going to have a great receiver room, and it's going to certainly help Kyler Murray, continue to be a good quarterback. He had a good year last year, and it certainly helped having Harrison there. But Luther Burden will add to that room, and I think that's a guy I think the Cardinals would look very hard at as their selection at 16.
Next up is Cincinnati, Dave, and there's all the talk, of course, about Trey Hendrickson and what's his, what's his time frame? How much longer is he going to be a Bengal? So they need to, one way or another, even with Hendrickson on this team, add more edge rushers, and that's why you've got Mike Green going to the Bengals.
Yeah, Trey Hendrickson. Whatever happens with Hendrickson, I think this is the pick. They could go offensive line here if they find the right value. I'm not sure it's there at this point. Tyler Booker, that name was popping up in my head a few times, but Mike Green, to me, he plays bigger than he lists in terms of size. That wrestling background, I saw his power on display live at the Senior Bowl against Josh Connolly. Probably had the highlight of the week where he put him on his rear, but Mike Green, he does play stronger than he does. But I bring that up because I think Cincinnati does want a little bit more size on the outside than what Mike Green looks like on paper. But his performance at the Senior Bowl, his performance against Ohio State early in the year, he plays big. And he's got outstanding bend and the ability to turn the corner at the top of the rush. I believe that he's going to be a guy that is probably their second best pass rusher on the outside before the end of the season. And that's a great hedge against what happens with Hendrickson long-term.
Seattle is next. And John, Kelvin Banks is the pick here. And is Banks a good pick here because of his ability to play multiple positions?
Correct. Yeah, that's exactly what we think. I think Tyler Booker is a big consideration here as well, in retrospect. But as far as the value of the player, we like Kelvin Banks better. And we think Banks would be a terrific guard. And from day one, G. Nudo, who evaluates offensive line for us, said that he thinks exactly that. He can move inside and be an excellent guard. And I go along with that. So if you take the best player available as far as an athlete is concerned, and even though Kelvin Banks is a tackle primarily, and he can be a good tackle, I think he's a guy that can play all along the line. You can use him. He's versatile, and where you plug him in is going to be where you have a need. They could plug him in at guard. I mean, they picked up some guys that can help them that are veterans because they were, I shouldn't say abysmal, but they were not very good as in the interior offensive line last year. Geno Smith was running for his life, and it was coming from the interior. So they need help there. And Banks is a guy that would very easily slide in there and help them right away. And if they need help at tackle, he can play out there too. And they need help in the offensive line, period. And that's the number one need that we see. And Kelvin Banks, with his ability, we think is the best player available for them.
Yeah, out of those young guards that they tried to play last year, out of those three, the one that actually does have, from my insider, the most upside is the kid LeMaya here, the 6th rounder. But they've got some issues. So that makes a lot of sense for Seattle to go with an offensive lineman. Next up is a player, Dave, that we really haven't talked an awful lot about. So he was sort of like a guy that early on seemed to be on the outside of the top of the first round, but has really started to gain some steam here as far as our guys are concerned. And that's Trey Amos going to Tampa Bay, who can definitely use corners. That's for sure.
Yeah, this is a player that probably ended the year with as much momentum on the field as any corner. I wouldn't say he's as good as any corner, but he did play strong finally. He kind of had a cup of coffee at Alabama in 2023. Coaching change forced him to move over to Mississippi. And he had a career year, which you always like to see. And he tested athletically really well, better than I thought he would based on the little tape that I saw of him. So Tampa's actually a hard team to really project what they're going to do in the draft in a good way. They don't have gaping holes, but if there is one, it is at corner. And that's a side that's a position that if you can't find solutions, it's going to rear its ugly head at some point, especially in fair weather cities like Tampa Bay, where weather doesn't become the factor that it would in the Northeast or in the, in the AFC North, for example. So they have to solidify this spot. And Amos, he has a lot of 1st and 2nd round grades. I would say it's split, but to me, it's a traits pick, height, weight, speed. And he showed a lot of nice ball skills on tape in 2024 that he's got something in him, just a little bit of a late bloomer.
His metrics are excellent in terms of the things he does as a corner. Acceleration rate, deceleration, all those things are very, very good. He's got a chance to be a really good player.
Dave, do you still like Campbell as an option if they don't go corner?
Who?
Jihad Campbell.
Yeah, I do. I'm a Jihad Campbell guy. There's a lot of split opinions on him as well. I like how versatile he is, and I actually think he's a good fit for Todd Bowles. Putting him on the line on passing situations and just giving them another edge weapon because they could use a little bit of edge help as well. They have a couple young pieces there, but they're unproven. So I think Jihad Campbell's in the discussion in that room right now.
Okay, with the next pick, John, I'm going to take a look at our Lads draft guide. And of course, this is available right now. It's been available for about a couple of weeks now. So hopefully you haven't waited this long to purchase the draft guide, but better late than never. So we'll have a link in the description of how to do it. And this is something that you can't live without if you're a big draft Nick. And don't forget it, even though it's still before the draft and it's a couple of weeks since it's been available. These are really, really more important for when the draft is over. So you can take a look at all the cool players that have been selected on your own team and so forth. Just an infinite amount of draft scouting profiles for all these players. So check it out, the Ourlads Draft Guide. And the reason I reference that, guys, is because of our next pick here, which is Denver and a running back. And when I think about Denver and running backs, John, I think of if Sean Payton's going to take one, boy, does that running back need to know how to catch out of the backfield. Because if he doesn't know how to catch out of the backfield.
Let me add one thing on your draft guide. At this point, we'll send you a PDF to make sure you get it. And it'll be in your mailbox, your email, almost instantly when you order. So
that's true.
So that's where we're going with those right now. Omarion Hampton is a terrific pick for Denver with what their needs are in that running back room. But I'm going to let somebody talk about him that if there's one player that Dave Syverson and I have talked about that Dave has been on the table for since August, it's Omarion Hampton. So I'm going to let Dave talk about him.
Yeah, grade-wise, I think Hampton's right there with Genty, to be honest with you. And nobody talks about Hampton going in the top 10, let alone the top 5 where we have him. I don't think the gap between these two is big at all. And in some ways, there are some things I like about Hampton more than Genty. I think he's built better for the NFL. I think he's got a little bit more breakaway speed once he's in the open field. And his contact balance is just as good. He's a little bit heavier too. A little bit stronger, a little more powerful, elite strength, and it's functional strength as well. It translates to the field. Huge yard after contact guy. And what surprises me about Hampton is what we see in Saquon Barkley. He's thick, he's strong, he's great in a phone booth, but if he breaks into the open field, you're not catching him from behind. And there are several glimpses of that on tape. In relation to Sean Payton bringing him into Denver, his best offenses in New Orleans that did not have a premier back. Pierre Thomas, does anyone remember him? He was the running back, the leading rusher on the best offense he ever had in New Orleans. But he did use a first-round pick on 2 different running backs. Draft trivia, Reggie Bush and Mark Ingram. This guy plans on playing with the lead a lot. That is how Sean Payton wants to play. He's going to get a lead. That's his vision for this roster and Bo Nix and keeping this offense at the top. You need a back that's going to grind out the clock in the second half of games. That is what Omarion Hampton's job can be. If he gets on a winning team, some of these backs like Saquon, they need to be on a winning team to really show you what they can do. Hampton could be on that level.
And straight from the guide, okay, Omarion Hampton caught 72 of 80 passes thrown his way with just 2 career drops.
Yep. Underrated receiver.
Yep. Okay, next up, let's talk a little bit about our next quarterback finally, Dave.
Finally.
And that is Shedeur Sanders going to Pittsburgh. And look, this is not going to be a surprise if Sanders drops. He could end up being like the Aaron Rodgers of this draft.
Yeah, and ironically, I think he's going to be teammates with Aaron Rodgers because I do think that's where he ends up, even though the slow play that we're seeing is just getting annoying at this point. But in relation to Shedeur Sanders, there are questions about his game, and they're rightfully so. But the dude knows how to play quarterback. The dude knows the game. He's a very accurate passer. If anything, he's not a star. He doesn't have a star power beyond the social media stuff to his game and his tool set. But if you put him in an offense where he could just manage, protect the ball, make the throws that are there, play to the Steelers culture of running the ball and playing good defense, that's where I think his ideal role is. I don't want him being someone that we're putting everything on, that was dropping back 40 to 45 times a game. Lastly, what I love about this marriage is the Steelers, they put as much investment into the offensive line I've studied this team since I've worked for our lads. They constantly pump assets, draft assets into that offensive line. They usually hit. That's the kind of system that Shedeur Sanders needs to be in because he's not a good against pressure. It's a weakness of his game. If he goes to the wrong organization, it's going to get ugly fast. But I think this is an ideal organization that can truly protect everything that Sanders is not and really use what Sanders is.
Next up, the LA Chargers, John, and we have another tight end off the board because it would be a surprise this year. See, I didn't think it was last year because of where they were picking. But here, I think it is going to be a surprise if Harbaugh does not take a tight end, especially if he could take a tight end that he helped recruit.
Yeah, we debated that. We think they need a receiver too. And Colston Loveland is a quality football player. He's a great receiver. He's a decent route runner for a tight end. He's got some downfield speed, and those are the strengths. That's what you look for in a tight end that's going to be an impact receiver in your system. And so the Chargers have a couple of tight ends that are decent blockers, and they're good players, but Colston Loveland adds something to their room, which the team like the Chargers, who likes to use a lot of 12 personnel. That's the trend for a lot of teams now that are using two tight ends quite a bit. Colston Loveland is a great fit, for them. They're a running back oriented team. They like power. They love the power scheme, and they're a multiple offense as far as the running game. And having a guy that adds to that can help the running game as a receiver, believe it or not, help open things up in your 12 personnel. Loveland is that guy.
What was interesting is that we talked, I think one of our mock drafts about, hey, wouldn't it be interesting? And we may see an interesting playoff here because Denver could be looking for both a running back and a tight end. The Chargers are looking for a running back and a tight end. And we were thinking about the tight end being the potential player, that the position that they would maybe there would be a trade up in order to get ahead of Denver. Maybe it's the running back. Maybe the Chargers are looking at Hampton and going, well, we don't want Denver to get him. Let's go get Hampton. Let's move ahead of Peyton and the Broncos to get him. So that's something I think we need to keep an eye on too.
Yeah, it's definitely an option. This running back class and the depth of it and how many good players there are. I wonder how many teams might try to play the risky side of it and say, hey, we can get our guy day two.
Yeah.
Let's pass in the elite talent. And then that also makes me question, would someone actually trade, meaning giving up extra assets for a running back? It'd be risky, but if there's someone that would do it, it would be Harbaugh.
And
I'm hearing more teams want to trade down than they do up because of the talent in this draft. Because of it's all bunched up. There's a lot of talent with similar value, and the more picks you could have with some of those kind of players, the better off you are.
Yeah, I just think it would be interesting because it's a division opponent. And if you think Hampton's going to be a star, you might not want that division opponent to get him. Okay, Green Bay Packers are next, John. And Egbuka was a guy that early on we thought could easily go in the top 15. Who knows? Maybe he still does. But, he seems to be slipping a bit. And we have him here at 23 going to the Packers.
Green Bay needs a receiver. That's there's no doubt about that. Christian Watson's coming off an injury. He was their number one guy. And I'm not sure he's going to be ready to start the season from what we're hearing. So they need somebody, and they need somebody badly. I know that they love Golden and they like McMillan. They've had him in. They've evaluated those guys. So if there's a trade up to be had, and Goody doesn't necessarily like to do that, but that's what you might see. But Egbuka, if he's sitting there, it's going to be a strong consideration for them. He's a returner. He's a good receiver. He's not the biggest. He's not the fastest, but he's a good route runner. He's got a good catch radius. He can go get the ball. He's not the best at a lot of things. There's certainly holes in his game, but he's been a very, very productive receiver for Ohio State in a very good football team. So getting him into, Green Bay, I don't know if he's the number one receiver type, and that's what the Packers need. And so I think they would prefer one of the other two. But if receiver is what they need and they need it badly, Egbuka is the next best guy, and that's who they I'm sure would consider at that spot. But they're also looking at help along the defensive front too. So one of those defensive tackles, interior defenders, or one of those edge rushers will definitely be a strong consideration for the Packers.
Yeah, I love Agbuka's fit to Green Bay because of what that wide receiver room has and what they don't have. They have talent, a lot of day two talent, and that's been their trend. It was 2002, the last time this franchise used a first round pick on a wide receiver, Javon Walker. And what Agbuka brings that they don't currently have is polish. This guy is probably the most polished wide receiver in that room the second he steps in. And it kind of just steadies the ship because every time I watch the Packers, drops, injuries, a different player going down every single time, or different players screwing them over with a drop or a bad route. Agbuka, can steady that ship, and it actually could set some of those other guys free a little bit. So I like Agbuka fit to Green Bay. That was the pick we had in January as well.
Yeah, and you mentioned edge rusher. That is definitely something the Packers are going to be eyeing, and keep an eye on the Jair Alexander news. As we all know, there's a lot of trade talk going on. Who knows if he's going to be available? If he's traded, then a corner could also be in the market for.
Yeah, that's a possibility, but that you won't know that until draft day. And if they don't get rid of him, if they don't do something with him before that, they're going to have to go with the need that they've got. And so that's that's going to be interesting. How much do they value Agbuka? That's going to be the key. If they don't value him like Dave does, or then you might see them go in a different direction.
Dave, the Vikings are next, and we talked about Starks as maybe a potential landing spot with the Miami Dolphins because of their safety situation. But here he is with the Minnesota Vikings, and this would be a really good addition to their secondary.
Yeah, good addition for value, good addition for need, both now and in the future. This is a team that lost Cameron Bynum at safety this offseason. And I'm surprised Harrison Smith is coming back. It seemed like, when watching his last interview after their season was over last year, it was done. So, retirement's on his mind. Malachi Starks comes in and could start right away. And he could be that general that Harrison Smith has been for years. He's a natural born leader. Everyone at Georgia loves him. Intangibles are off the charts. Yes, did he not take the jump that we thought he would take after his stellar freshman season? That's true. But there's a lot more to it than just what the stats and the production that you see. There's a lot of metrics to him that make a lot of sense. And one of my favorite things about his game is that he can play nickel. He might be one of the better nickels in this class. So he gives you options in a secondary that's really unstable. I don't know how many long-term solutions they have anywhere in that room. Malachi Starks steadies that ship right away.
Yeah, Starks is a two-way player, and I've studied this kid a lot, and for 2 years, and we thought he might come out last year, and we liked him then. But what Dave said about nickel is key because you can move him, play him over the top, and situationally you can make him a big nickel. He's a good tackler. He can match and mirror inside receivers. He's got a lot of things going for him, which is why we have him graded very high, and think that he could go higher than this, but you never know.
Houston is next, John, and you have Ursary going to the Texans.
Yeah, there's a lot of different ways that the Texans could go. And as far as that goes, we think Ursary, in our mind, is the next best tackle on the board. He's athletic, he can move, and they need to protect their quarterback. I mean, C.J. Stroud, he was under a lot of pressure last year, particularly at the end of the season, and they're going to have to upgrade that position. And he's a guy that we feel can do it. He's a solid left tackle potential player. We've liked him. We've watched him a lot. And he's a guy that we think is a great fit for Houston.
Dave, the Rams can go a bunch of different ways, but this is where you believe Jayad Campbell will go.
Yeah, they're a tough team to pick for right now. They're in the win now mode. It's the twilight of Matthew Stafford's career, but I mean, this team is competitive because of what these defensive rookies have done in the past couple of years. There was not a better draft class, in my opinion, last year than what we saw out of the Rams, and they were all on the defensive side of the ball and all levels of the defense, the line, the linebackers, the secondary. I think they just keep pumping resources into it to take a little bit of pressure off Matthew Stafford and make sure that he doesn't have to score 35 points a game. Jayad Campbell is so multiple. And I mean, his best tape to me is the best tape of any linebacker in this class by a wide margin. It's just a little inconsistent. There's a little bit of rawness to his game. He needs Coach Cooper in his life to kind of solidify some of the weak points to his game. But this guy can play off the ball. He can play on the line. He's fast. He's long. He's super athletic. I think he knows the game at a high level as well. There's just a few fine points that need to be tuned up. But if this dude hits his ceiling, I think Campbell is one of the top 3 defenders on that team within 2 years. And that's a pretty good young defense. I think he adds to it.
Next up is Jalen Walker. And that's right. We have him landing with the Ravens at 27. I'm sure the Ravens would be pretty happy with Jalen Walker at 27. But again, as we mentioned, John, this is a player that could end up also in the top 10.
Where do you play Jalen Walker? This is a polarizing player, and I've watched a lot of tape on this kid going back to last year, and I'm still scratching my head on this guy. He doesn't have the lateral movement you look for in an off-the-ball linebacker. He started his career at Georgia as an off-the-ball linebacker, even though he never played it in high school. And they tried to make him off the ball. He didn't play a whole lot. They moved around a little bit as a rover-type player, a joker in one of their packages. They do a lot of things with packages, and Walker, they tried to fit him into that. He in our minds, he never really developed as an off-the-ball linebacker there. They had him on the edge as a rotational edge player. Again, this is a guy that started for the first time this year, and they moved him with the idea of being a full-time off-the-ball player, and then dropping him to the edge occasionally. He had more reps off the ball than he did on the edge, but he still had significant reps as an edge defender. In fact, he played on the edge more than he had, because basically he got a lot more playing time than he had before. So the way I look at him is I don't see him as a guy that can play off the ball consistently. He could be a joker, a guy that you can move, is a rover type player, situationally in certain packages. I think his best position is Sam linebacker. So the teams that are looking at him as a full-time player will look at him as a Sam linebacker, in my opinion. I know that believe that that's what Carolina is looking at him at. Baltimore plays a similar defense, and he's a great athlete. 4.5 flat 40, great acceleration. His chase speed across the field is phenomenal. So he's got the athleticism you look for in a linebacker. So if Jalen Walker's sitting there, I think they're going to have a hard time letting him slide.
The Detroit Lions are next, and we actually, this was interesting, Dave, because we actually went with Zabel in our mock draft, but the offensive line is sticking here with Tyler Booker from Alabama.
Yeah, they're completely different players. So if you just ask Detroit Lions, do you want more road grader, power, size? Booker's the answer. If you want an athlete with more options, you're going Gray Zabel. To me, I go back to, what does Dan Campbell want this team to be? He wants to beat the crap out of people. I mean, and I really think that's just what he wants to do. And you look at that depth chart, they haven't done anything offensively. I mean, there's no orange first or second string. And to me, this is a pick that's almost necessary. You don't know what you have in Mahogany from Boston College, who's coming off an injury. And didn't really flash that well last year. I know young player, 6th round pick, can't expect that much. But to me, Booker, he's the week 1 starter there, and he fits exactly. I mean, we've all seen highlights of how the Lions front office and Campbell, their fist pounds and chest bumps in the war room every time they make one of these picks. This Tyler Booker, to me, is exactly what a Detroit Lion has been under this regime.
Okay, next up, Washington. And boy, this is a pick here, Dave, that is also going to be quite interesting, because Revel is a corner that is not really a household name, especially because of his injury situation, but extremely talented.
Extremely talented, and a little on the raw side, but I like the fact that, I mean, he tore his ACL in practice early in the year last year. So he's ready week 1. He's ready for training camp, Ravel, according to his agent. And when you're talking about the upside of the ball skills and what Dan Quinn wants out of his corners, when his defenses are at their top level, they have a corner like this that you're almost afraid to throw near because of the ball skills, the size, the length, the long speed. There are issues in his game. I don't love the high hit movement, the inability to change direction quickly, but you can scheme around that a little bit. And I think in terms of the upside of all these corners in the draft, he might have the highest ceiling. Everyone wanted this kid in the transfer portal last year, by the way. Alabama, LSU, Florida, Clemson, Texas. They were all trying to get this kid. So it's not like he was off the radar and no one knew about him. He's got a lot of tools. He's got quality tape. And if you're confident that the knee is okay, this is a really solid value pick for a team that needs some help at corner.
Buffalo is next, John. And our pick here is Derek Harmon, defensive tackle, Oregon.
Well, he's a guy that we think could be long gone before he gets to Buffalo. Just a matter of which team. We talked about him possibly going earlier. But he's a terrific player. He's quick off the ball. He's physical. He can push the pocket inside. You could also play him as a 5 technique. But Buffalo likes to have a rotation of interior defenders. They didn't get the kind of play that they wanted out of guys like Oliver last year, and they're hoping some of those guys come back to form. But Harmon fits in that rotation, and he will be an impact right off the bat as an interior inside pass rusher, and also a guy that can play the run. He's got good lateral movement. He's quick at the snap. He's a guy that you could play in a 3-4. You could use him as your 5 technique as well.
Kansas City and the Eagles, the Super Bowl champs, will round out our final mock draft of 2025. And Josh Conerly is the pick. Offensive line, big surprise, right, Dave?
Yeah. I'd be surprised if Kansas City's go-to plan at left tackle was Jalen Moore. I know that they signed him to more than just a 1-year tryout type deal, but I think you have to have a plan B, because their plan B last year worked to a point, and it's what lost them the Super Bowl. They just could not hang with the best trenches in the NFL when they faced off against Philadelphia. Conerly, to me, even if he's not a year 1 player, even if he doesn't win that starting left tackle job, it creates a door for putting one of these guys at right tackle next year, because Jawaan Taylor gets really expensive. If you look next year at that contract, that might get to a point they might have to choose between him and Trey Smith. And if you ask me which one of those guys I'm taking, I'm going with Trey Smith, locking him up long-term, cutting Jawaan Taylor. You have Conerly ready to insert at right tackle, or you move Jalen Moore over to the right tackle and insert Conerly. He is one of the most twitched up, quickest, best athletes of all the tackles at the position. He just needs a little bit more time to add a little bit more power to his game, maybe add a little bit of strength. He does lose a lot to power rushers. We saw that at the Senior Bowl as well. But when he's right, I mean, it almost looks easy for him. And he's a really young kid too. He's going to grow into that frame a little bit more. If you get into the body type stuff, which I think can get overstated at times, the lower half is a little on the thin side. I'm not sure if Andy Reid cares that much about that or not, but it translates to how fast he can play. And keeping Patrick Mahomes, scramble free over the back 9 of his career. I know it's crazy to say, but that it's coming up. The back 9 of his career is coming up. They need to keep investing into that offensive line, because that's where you're going to get the best out of him.
He's strictly a tackle, John?
Well, I think so. I think he's a tackle. He's an athletic, type of guy. But, these guys are versatile. I mean, any one of these tackles conceivably could move into the offensive line. But I think the athleticism that he's got, and I don't know if he's got the power that some of these other guys have, but, he's definitely going to be a solid tackle.
And the Eagles will end our draft here for 2025, our mock draft. And John, you have, I tell you right now, any of our fans that are watching this are seeing us disclose that Kenneth Grant is going to go to the Philadelphia Eagles. They're not very happy right now. This would be a bonanza pick that the Eagles were able to land a player this talented at 32.
Well, we've got 2 defensive tackles that have gone 30 and 32 in this mock draft, and I'm not sure that's going to happen. But if it does, it's going to be partly because some of these teams that need that position realize that there is an awful lot of talent at defensive tackle. Interior defenders, there's more of them than at the combine than we've ever seen. They had 40 of them. And, we've got 33, 34 with draftable grades. So there's going to be talent there at the end of the draft. You could find a starter probably every round. And so waiting on that position is probably, if these guys fall this far, waiting on that position is the reason it happened. And it did with us because we evaluated these players. But to quote George Young, these guys may not be the prettiest guys at the dance, but if you want to win at the dance, you dance with the elephants. So Kenneth Grant is a big, physical interior defender. He's a nose tackle type player, but he's a lot more than that. He's got great lateral movement. He can make plays along the line. He can push the pocket. He's going to absorb double teams, and he's not going to get blown out of there. As a pass rusher, he's more of a collapse the pocket type pass rusher. He's not necessarily the guy that's going to consistently escape blocks and get to the quarterback, but he will take up guys because of his ability to push and get and knock somebody back into the quarterback. He's going to warrant attention that will allow for that guy next to him to beat somebody one-on-one against a lot of protection schemes. So Kenneth Grant provides a lot of value. We think he's worth a mid-first round pick. And sitting here at 32, Philadelphia is going to be jumping up and down if he's there for them to take.
And just want to remind everybody once again, this is the official Ourlads hard copy draft guide. And as John mentioned before, if you just don't want to wait, maybe you want to order this and you just don't want to wait a few days and you want to get the information right at your fingertips on the same day, you can just order the PDF version as well. So check out the link in the description and order the best draft guide on the market. Also, what's coming up with future newsletters, Dave?
Yeah, we have the Ourlads mock is put in there. We're going to give one final draft preview Wednesday, and then Friday's newsletter is going to be an immediate reaction to every single pick. I'm just going to keep putting it into the newsletter, and it'll be sent out Friday morning. So what is the initial emotion reaction to every single pick? That will be what the Friday newsletter is. So we have one last preview coming your way Wednesday, and then Friday will be what actually happened in that first round. What are the immediate reactions?
All right, so we're out of here. Thanks for tuning into the Ourlads Football Network, and we'll see you next time. And enjoy the draft, everybody.